Hey guys, what's up? It's Caitlin McKegg. I am a real estate broker here in Phoenix, Arizona. Thanks for coming to my channel and watching this video. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button. I'm always here talking about what's going on in the Phoenix real estate market. And if you're not new, thank you so much for coming back and watching this video. On Monday, I talked about doing a video about the contract ratio. Sorry, I'm having a hair that has a mind of its own today. So I was going to do this video about the contract ratio because it's an easier thing to understand than the Cromford market index, and it's going to tell us how the market is cooling and show us that in a few different ways by a bar graph and then also a map. So I want to show that to you guys. Let's get into it. I am first going to put on my glasses. This is a new thing. Gotta love getting older, but it helps me quite a bit in seeing the screen. So I don't have to flub the numbers for you. So let's talk about the contract ratio and how that is defined. So the contract ratio is looking at the number of homes under contract as compared to the number of homes that are active for sale in any given area. So the count of listings under contract divided by the count of active listings times 100 is how they get that value. And here's our little key. So anywhere between 0 and 20 is a cool market, 21 to 40 is warm, 41 to 74 is warmer, 75 to 99 is hotter, and 100 and over is a frenzy. We're gonna come back to this map. I wanna first come over here and look at this bar graph. And let's look at all the cities in Phoenix, the Phoenix metro area, and see where we stand. So our contract ratio right now in June of 2022 is 113. And if you remember, anything over 100 is a frenzy. Also, think about the math with that. So all that really needs to happen for a frenzy is we need to have more under contract than are available for sale. And so when I say frenzy, it doesn't mean that we're in that frenzied market that I was talking about in the past of, multiple offers on every property, everything selling in a day, because that's not what we're seeing anymore. So that just means that we've got more under contract than what are available for sale. But that margin is shrinking quite a bit. So you can see in this little box here, we have about 9,600 under contract and 8,500 that are still on the market. And in the past, when we had this craziness going on, we had about 11,000 under contract and only 3,500 that were actually active. So that is a big difference in the margin. So even though we're in a frenzy now and we were considered a frenzy back in, April of 2021, it's a different level of frenzy, if that makes sense. But one thing I do want to mention is this is not a seasonally adjusted measure. So the Cromford Market Index is, you're not going to see fluctuations based on season there. But for the contract ratio, it is not. And that's why you see these peaks and valleys here, which are our typical seasonal, it's our typical season in Phoenix. Clearly everything went haywire over here as we got into 2020 and beyond, but typically this is kind of what happens. And what's really nice about this is we can see where we're at this June as compared to like going back in time in 2018. Our contract ratio was 75 at that time. We had 14,000 listings that were active and 11,000 that were under contract. Going back here just to remind you, we have about 8,500 active and 9,600 under contract. So those numbers are very different as far as our inventory and what's under contract. And then let's go all the way back to June of 2017. Contract ratio was 69. We had 11,000 under contract and 17,000 active. We're far from 17,000 active right now, but who knows, with all the inventory that's been coming to the market lately, that could change. What's cool about this too is we can, pick out a particular city and see where they stand and get their contract ratio. I can also break it up by zip code as well as price range and different types of properties. So let's just look quickly at Chandler. Their contract ratio is 108. Their margin is very small there, 369 under contract and 339 are active. So that, as we start to get more listings on the market, if that continues, that is going to shrink and we will certainly be under a frenzy in Chandler there. Let's just look at price range because I think that's going to be interesting to see. The price range under 300,000 is the only price range right now that has really a lot of activity and like frenzied market still. So I want to see what this says. If we can just get all of these boxes checked, take this out. So 300 and below. So 149. There are 679 active and over 1,000 that are under contract. So that gap is pretty significant, which is why the contract ratio is much higher in that price range. So certainly in a frenzy, let's look back to June of 2017 and see what's a little more normal. 109 and actives and under contracts were both in the 7,000. So there's a difference of about 600 or so. So definitely a different situation at that time, but also remember pricing was different then too. Homes under 300 were a bit more common back in 2017 than they are today. So let's look at the, let's see here. Let's look at the higher price ranges, because we have that midsection, right? That's like 300 to like 850 or so. That's like what we see the most of. Let's see what, luxury-ish is looking like. Let's do, okay, perfect. They have it bucketed out, 800 to $1 million, and let's go all the way up to 2 million and see what's happening there. So their contract ratio is less, it's 77, 1,200 under contract, 1,500 active. So they have a good 300 that are still active on the market and not yet under contract. And if we go back, 20 was their contract ratio. And if we remember the definition, 20 is a cool market. And so that was back in 2017. And they had only 396 under contract and 1,900 active. Very different environment. Looks like luxury peaked here in March of this year. 195 was their contract ratio, with 1,100 under contract and only 584 available for sale. So while we're at it, let's look in that mid price range here. We'll take all of these out under 300 and let's see, gosh, there's so many. You can break this down really, can get pretty granular here. Let's take these out. Okay. So 400 to 800 basically is what we're looking at. 111, that is starting to shrink as well. Let's look back in time. 49 definitely had more active than under contract back then at 4,000 compared to 2,000, pretty much double. And then let's look at June of 2020. It's interesting. We were lower then and things were still fluctuating. It hadn't taken off quite as much yet. Back in June of last year, 247. We have 3,000, almost 4,000 under contract and only 1,600 active. So 111, quite a big difference there. Now, for all of this, if you have questions about your city, your zip code, a price range, whatever, email me in the description below. You can find my contact information and request that information. I can get that to you. But I want to move on right now to this map here. Oh, no, I don't want to make it smaller. Oops. Come back. Oh boy. All right. So this is not what I wanted to do. This is what happens when you record live. Well, I'm not really live, but I'm not going to be editing all of this out. Okay. So we've got our little key here: cold, warm, hot, hotter, frenzy, insanity. There is no more insanity any longer. This is supposed to be gray like scorched earth. That's what the Cromford report says, if you're wondering why it looks blue. This is actually blue. This is cold. So we've got a few areas that are warm. What do we have here? 85034 is warm. We have, oops, this is not working for me very well. I don't know if the home button's gonna help. Now we're freezing. Okay, and we're back. So warm 85034, 85257. These are all zip codes, obviously. 85258 and up here in 85085. All of those are warm. Cold, let's see here. We have, actually, I think that is supposed to be frenzy. This is cold. Only 2 active listings and nothing under contract. That's 85264. But the majority you can see is in this hot range, 85255. A lot of Scottsdale is cooler. North Phoenix, cooler meaning they're in that hot, not the hotter category. So a lot of the East Valley. And then we've got our hotter section, and let's see, so we've got 85226, we've got some areas of Mesa, Chandler, let's see, all throughout here. We've got a little frenzy going on over here in 85353. We've got another frenzy over here, but it's just by a little bit because it's 102 is the contract ratio, 85381. Frenzy here, 85254. And that is, that's always a popular zip code. So that may stay a frenzy for a bit. But I will tell you, and I wish I could do like a time lapse of this map and go back in time of how it looked. But I saw a presentation from the Cromford report this week, and they showed this map for every week in June. And it's amazing because everything was this dark red with a little bit of insanity and some of the hotter section on week 1. And then on week 2, you start to see a lot of yellow and no more insanity. Week 3, you start to see a lot more yellow and not a lot of frenzy. And so week by week, this has changed so much. And I'll tell you, like all of the last 2 years we've been looking at it, it's been this color and this color pretty much. That's it, nothing else. So it's amazing to see the change, especially when you're just looking at it for 1 month. So that's all I have time for today, you guys. I hope this is helpful for you to kind of see a bigger picture of what's going on in the market, how things are cooling. Thanks for letting me wear my glasses today. Really helped, so I gave you the right numbers. But if you have questions about your zip code, your city, your price range, or anything that you saw on there that you want me to pull for you, check the description, send me an email, and I will get that to you as soon as possible. Thanks for joining me today, you guys. I'll be back next week with another market update. I'm Caitlin McKegg with the Desert Dreamers team at HomeSmart.